7 Marines are dead after a training mission went terribly wrong. 2 military helicopters collided over the desert near the Arizona-California border. It happened last night. One of the Marines was stationed in Yuma. Not on your sides, Craig Smith is in Yuma with the latest developments. Craig, have you been able to find out much about the Marines who died?
Not at this point. The Marines are not releasing any identifications at this time until they are sure that they have caught up with all the members of those Marines' families and notified them of just what happened out there in the desert last night. But we can tell you this, just in terms of how many were involved, we can tell you that 2 were on board one of the helicopters and 5 were on board the other when they went down last night. The crash was just outside a desert training range, remote enough to allow training with real ammunition, and enough like Afghanistan to help air crews prepare for a danger zone they could fly in soon. One of the pilots was from Air Station Yuma. The other Marines were from Marine Air Station Miramar, north of San Diego. The helicopters were a Super Cobra and a Huey like the ones shown here. For now, no one is offering a theory of why the crash happened. Night missions like the one they were on often calls for flying with night vision goggles, which help crews fly without lights that might give away their positions, but also force pilots to fly with a view more blurry and more narrow than they'd see flying in daylight. It's been described as tunnel vision, that you at least don't have the peripheral vision you would have without them. Does that make it more challenging, especially if you've got other aircraft right near you?
Well, I think, yes, it's certainly wearing night vision goggles is a different regime, shall we say, and not to sound flippant, but it's just not daytime. Yes, your peripheral vision is restricted. Yes, it is much more like looking through a tube because it is monocular vision.
But the Yuma Air Station commander says careful training helps pilots adapt to the altered perceptions and still fly safely with night vision. Investigators will look at radar information for the time of the crash, the pilot's history, and the maintenance history of the aircraft. Both helicopters are designs that first flew almost 40 years ago in the Vietnam War, but the ones involved in the crash are much newer, upgraded versions. Now, the training mission that went down last night was an independent mission, a smaller mission involving those couple of aircraft, but there was a much bigger training mission in that area that night, and at least one of the aircraft up at that time was able to report that this crash had happened, and the testimony they give investigators could be an important part of figuring out just what happened.
Have those night vision goggles figured into other crashes?
They have figured into military crashes. They are enough of a concern that when they started to become used by civilian pilots like medical ambulance pilots and such, the United Nations, an aircraft safety arm of the United Nations, started putting out a safety advisory warning pilots of the sort of effect we have described and warning them the various ways they need to adjust to be able to use night vision safely.
Okay, Craig, thank you.